Welcome to another edition of the Hog Roundup with Jacob Morris. I got a jam-packed show for you today. First and foremost, an interview I'm really excited about. I think you'll really enjoy. Arkansas softball outfielder Reagan Johnson joins the show. She talks a little bit about how Arkansas has turned this season around in terms of starting 1-5 in conference play. The Hogs have won 5 straight SEC series, 4 of which have come against top 10 opponents. The Hogs wrap up the regular season this weekend against LSU. Then after Reagan, ESPN Arkansas's Tye Richardson, you know him well, he joins the show. And we break down Arkansas football. We talk spring football, where this team is at. We talk some of the NIL drama as well. And Ty gives his thoughts on some of the NFL draft fits as well for the Razorbacks. All that's coming up on the Hog Roundup. After the break, enjoy. We're joined now on the Hog Roundup by a very, very special guest, Reagan Johnson of the Arkansas softball team, the red hot Arkansas softball team at the moment. And Reagan, let's start there. You know, for you guys, you start 1-5 in SEC play. You know, for you guys, you're obviously not going to press the panic button, but you turn around, now you've rattled off 5 straight SEC series. What was the message from Coach Deifel in the locker room, all the above, you know, to turn this thing around the way that you guys have in the past couple weeks?
She just kind of reminded us that one, it's very early in the season and that we can turn it around. She just kind of lit a fire under our butts, to be honest. And we knew that we were not playing our game. So yeah, actually the real turnaround was we had this one practice where we played this game. It was like our energy scrimmage. And
Okay.
after that, it's just been like night and day compared to the first 5 or 6 games that we played.
Walk me through the energy scrimmage. What about that turned it all around for you guys?
So it was like 3 different teams, and basically it was like you get points for having energy or actually like scoring runs, and then with the points you could buy like extra runners or extra outs and stuff. So we were being like really competitive, and we did it like the whole practice, and it was a lot of fun, and it really turned our season around.
Apparently, I think you guys got to do more energy scrimmages here as you race towards the postseason. You know, you guys somehow, some way, you have one regular season series left. It seems like this season has kind of flown by. You know, as you think back on the past, 5, 6 weekends, whatever it might be, it's not like you guys are beating up on the bottom half of the SEC here. It's top 10 opponent after top 10 opponent after top 10 opponent. It's impossible to boil it all down to one thing, but what's been the key for you guys to kind of bottle in this and going on the run you guys have?
Ultimately, it's just been like we have so much confidence in ourselves, and there's not one moment in any game that we believe that we are going to lose that game. And I think that's the difference between other teams and us, and even past teams that I've been on. It's just this year, it's a complete different mindset, and it's been amazing and really fun to play with the mindset that we have going into each game.
You guys just seem to have so many different personalities between Bree, Ella, all the above. How much fun just for you guys outside of softball, just in general, has this team been, has this season been so far?
It's been really fun. They're actually dancing outside the window right now. But it's a lot of fun. We're honestly like siblings. I think Reagan Kramer said that one time. She was like, "We're like siblings." And I was like, "That is the perfect like description of this team." It's like we're gonna be completely honest with each other, but at the same time we're gonna joke around, and we have a lot of fun on and off the field.
Reagan actually said that to me last week. She said it works both ways, where it's like, you build each other up, but also, you have hard conversations. She said people look at her and be like, that hairstyle's not it. We're not going with that, which I thought was funny. For you
Yes.
individually, you're obviously so unique as a player in terms of just your speed. You might be the fastest player on the campus of Arkansas. Just, in terms of what you bring to the field, how frustrating, I think, do you think it is for opposing pitchers, opposing staffs to have to deal with your type of speed when you're in the box, then once you're on the base pass as well?
Honestly, it's not something I ever really think about, but then the team will joke about it all the time where they're like, "Oh my gosh," like we'll do like short game defense where like it's me and Reagan Kramer going against the defense, and they're like, "Ah," and they just get so annoyed and stuff, and it's really funny. So can only imagine that the pitchers of the opposing team are feeling the same way.
I can only imagine that's a handful to deal with. I mean, I got to ask you, Courtney's sitting in the corner of the room right now. You taught her how to steal bases before the season started. I was looking through the stats. You've got 19 stolen bases so far. How many of those stolen bases do you credit to that teaching that you gave Courtney? How much of that, when you went through, you said when you were talking to Courtney, you weren't sure how you did it. You just kind of did it. Did, teaching Courtney help you at all heading into the season at all?
Yes, it did. Every single one, all 19 of them, I credit to Courtney.
Courtney will be really happy to hear that. As you guys kind of move towards the postseason here, OKC obviously is always the goal for you guys. What to you makes this team capable of kind of reaching that summit that this program just hasn't quite been able to get to over the past couple of years?
Like I said, just a few minutes ago about our confidence and our like belief in ourselves that we are not gonna lose a game. Like not one moment, and I'm so serious, not one moment are we like, this game is not ours. Like we are like, we're gonna win this game, good vibes, we got it, let's go.
Ella has the good vibes thing, right? When did that all start, and how have you kind of seen that play out throughout the season?
I actually think it started with Coach Gasso going like this and saying Jamos. And Jamos is Jaden Ramos is like her nickname. And he was like Jamos. And then we're like, good vibes, just good vibes. And we kind of just rolled with it. It's been fun.
You guys earlier this week, Softball America, the highest ranking in program history. Obviously that stuff is fun. What was the message though in terms of, with you guys and the team, the coaching staff is saying, hey, our ranking's great, a number is great, but also staying focused on what you guys have in front of you.
Yeah. One thing is that we don't talk about rankings. It's kind of common like knowledge with all of us
Mhm.
that it's just a number and it can be moved. It moves every week. So it doesn't matter what they rank us. We just need to continue to play our game the best of our ability and believing in ourselves.
You hit leadoff for the team. You get on base a fair amount, which means you get to watch Bree hit from first or second base a lot of times. Have you thought throughout this year how many times that Bree Ellis has either hit a home run or in some capacity brought you home? Just what has been your impression of the season she's had this season, and how much fun has it been able to watch it from your vantage point?
Bree is the funnest player I've ever watched in my entire life. She is outstanding. And every time I'm on base and she comes, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna score. I'm about to score. Every time. She's just phenomenal. And I mean phenomenal.
When you guys are kind of ramping up here towards the postseason, it's obviously you're thinking about OKC. That's what you guys want to do. But how important is it to just kind of take things one game at a time as well, and not get too far ahead of yourselves in terms of your season wide goals, and just take it one inning, one game at a time.
It's very important. We kind of preach being where our feet are at, and I think that's what helps us keep going and have and continue to have the success that we are having. So that's kind of what we live by, just being where your feet are at.
It seems like every single player kind of has their own individual story on, why Coach Deifel makes this place feel like home, why Coach Deifel, made the place right for whoever it might be. Do you have that with Coach Deifel? How did your relationship start with her? And, just how special is the relationship that you have with her and she has with the entire team?
Whenever I was getting recruited, one of the main things that stuck out to me were the fact that the coaches were just so fun and so genuine to talk to, and nothing has changed since I've been here. We joke around every day, like we will push each other around. Coach D actually literally cleaned our turfs for us the other day, like was sitting on the ground scrubbing them. Like she's an amazing person, an amazing coach. We all love her.
When you think about, your kind of career arc here at Arkansas, where have you seen yourself grow most individually in terms of, being a softball player on the field?
Definitely mentally. I think just my mental game has I would say like gradually gotten better throughout all 3 years that I've been here, and I think that that itself has made my game elevate.
What do you credit that to in terms of kind of seeing an improvement in that regard? What's helped you kind of improve mentally?
I don't know. I think I kind of just like matured. to be honest.
That makes sense. And then wrap it up here. We've kind of danced around it here throughout this interview, but the chance to reach OKC, to reach your guys' team goals, what would that mean for you individually? What would that mean for this team in terms of everything it would mean for the program as well?
It would be amazing. It would mean everything to us. We're working so hard for it, and to be the first team that Arkansas softball would take to the World Series would be just an amazing accomplishment, and I'm sure we'll achieve it.
Open for it. Razorback fans, get out to Bogle Park this weekend. Final regular season for the Hogs coming up, or final regular season series coming up for the Hogs against LSU. Reagan, thanks so much for joining the show.
Thanks for having me.
That is Arkansas outfielder Reagan Johnson joining the show, joining the Hog Roundup. When we return after the break, ESPN Arkansas's Tye Richardson joins the show to talk all things football. Now joining the show, familiar face, ESPN Arkansas's Tye Richardson. Tye, good to be back with you per usual. We're going to talk a little bit of football here. Spring football wrapping up for the Razorbacks. Not wrapping up the way a lot of fans wanted with that spring game getting canceled. It was unfortunate the way that went. But, we're just going to kind of talk this team heading into fall. It's a death trap of a schedule for the Razorbacks. We know that. This team is going to be tested time and time again. You get Ole Miss early. You get Notre Dame out of conference. You get, seems like, every single tough team on the road because that conference or the schedule just flips coming up this year. Your impressions coming out of spring, where do you think the strengths of this team are, weaknesses are of this team? What have been your impressions of this team overall and the team that the Razorbacks are going to have coming up in the fall?
I think based on what you read and based on what Pittman's talked about, they need a few more guys on defense. Their first four portal additions were on the defensive side of the football, and then you had a quarterback and a wide receiver. So that is something that you always almost have to change your opinion after fall camp because we'll see how these four guys factor into this rotation and everything else. From the offensive side, the good thing is you've got some continuity with the quarterback. And funny enough, I'm coming from XNA this weekend. I'm walking to my car. First person I see is Bobby Petrino. So I wonder what he was doing. So I mean, you always wonder about the offense. That's where your mind goes. But it's not like they could have just this awesome roster. They could stockpile in a variety of ways, but it's the schedule you alluded to. I'm going to be in Baton Rouge, Louisiana next week. Alex Box. That's a hostile environment, as is Death Valley. Tiger Stadium is going to be nuts, and you got to go to Death. You got to go to Death Valley. You got to go to Knoxville and play Neyland. You got to go to Austin and play Texas, who I know they're starting their Arch Manning era. Mm-hmm. You can play Oxford, which is a completely new team from what they've had with Dart going to the Giants.
Tennessee, why not?
Yeah, it's just it's just tough. Arkansas fans are just in a situation where they feel like this is probably a 500-ish team.
Yeah,
I hope that they get 7 or 8 wins regular season, but it's hard to look at this roster and look at the schedule and say, man, they're locked in for 7 or 8 wins.
Well, and it's the addition too when you look at the non-con, right? And you've got Arkansas State, you've got Alabama A&M. The Arkansas State game will be interesting just from storyline, fun perspective, right? And that'll be the Super Bowl, right? You go to Memphis for no reason, right? You've got that one, a group of 5 team that's been really good the past couple of years, really for a while now. And then Notre Dame, the team that played in the national championship last year. So it's like you don't do yourself any favors out of conference as well. And I could go on a whole scheduling rant just about the fact that they thought they could get away with just flipping the schedule, right? So, you have teams like, Missouri that are playing just nobody for the second year in a row. And then you have teams like Arkansas playing just a gauntlet. You have teams like Florida playing a gauntlet 2 years in a row. And it's all just supposed to work out. And, you are what your record says you are is just ridiculous, right? But locking back in a little bit, you mentioned the offense. I am fascinated, and I think everybody is, to see what Taylen Green looks like in year 2, because you hear nonstop. You mentioned Coach Petrino, what these quarterbacks look like in year 2, and you saw the flashes. You saw the highs with Taylen. You saw the lows as well. The hope would be you've got all of the athletic prowess in the world, every single bit of it. You would hope the decision-making shores up a bit in year 2, and that's where you potentially could see something special out of the QB position.
Yeah, and I just like the idea of Arkansas being not alone. LSU with Nussmeier back is the
Yeah.
kind of the most notable quarterback that I think we're returning wise in the Southeastern Conference, at least that I'm
No
thinking
more
about.
Nico. So
Yeah, no, you don't have that. So that, I mean, that's an element that you have that not a lot of their teams or coaches in this league do. What step? Because Taylor wasn't a top half quarterback last
No.
year. You look at those SEC wins. They weren't in spite of him because that's disrespectful. But he would tell you he didn't play spectacular in some of those games. One of the best moments I can remember. It's like the third and 18 play where he rolled out and find Isaiah Satania, which he went up and made a great play on the ball. And that's my most notable Taylor Green moment, because if you remember the Tennessee game, he didn't throw or score a touchdown. That was more rush than football. He did get injured and had a cheap shot, and there was a few plays he made. But I'm hoping that there's more marquee moments, Jacob, for him this year, where Razorback fans can point to and say that kid made a play that. And I'm not saying he cost the team in games last year, but that kid made a play that won us the football game. And you didn't have a lot of those last year.
It's a great point, and I think that goes with the consistency point too. Coach Petrino talked about that when we heard from him, in the spring, where he talked about there were a lot of times last year when Taylor was kind of looking around, head spinning, right? Because he come into a new system, and everybody, what is the quote? Everybody sounds like they're going to go undefeated in the spring. I get it, right? But Coach Petrino talked about it's a much more confident quarterback from the standpoint that it's a guy that understands this offense, and it's a guy that isn't looking for answers but seems to have the answers. And we saw the flashes. You mentioned a couple plays. I think back to just because we saw it on repeat with Isaac getting drafted, but that throw he made against A&M to open that game, right? Just improvising, and he's always going to have the legs. It's going to be interesting to see what he looks like. Defense is going to be a question mark as well. Everything, it seems like, is going to be a question mark, especially with that schedule. I wanted to get your opinion a little bit. I don't know how to properly segue this one, but we're going to talk a little bit about this NIL stuff, and I'm just going to let you kind of go, right? Obviously, Hunter Yurachek, Arkansas, in the news for all the reasons in terms of, trying to recoup some of these NIL losses. What were your impressions, reading through this, the backlash, the support Arkansas has gotten nationally? Where do you kind of fall on this with Madden and Dasman and all the above?
Well, in that article that Brandon Marcello talked about, I had not seen Desmond James mentioned until that piece, if I remember that correctly. So I think that Hunter Yurachek has gotten a pretty good pat on the back from every national person I've seen. I personally don't anticipate blowback on recruiting on this, because all you're doing is asking kids to live up to what they signed contracts to do, and enforcing, like any other breach of contract would happen anywhere else in society. Evidently, this has happened all over the place, and NIL collectives were just letting the kids go. And I bet there's a bunch of them, directors and ADs across the country, that are happy Hunter Yurachek was kind of the first one to stand his ground or whatever. I think it's just a situation where a 4-star kid left, and now you're just hoping that the guys that you have on the roster and the guys that are in are going to be backups. Because I'm not wishing this on Taylor, but Taylor got injured a couple times last year. You're going to see KJ Jackson or one of these other kids on the field. That's it's inevitable, unless the offensive line is just unbelievable. So I'm hoping it'll be better. But typically when a quarterback's get injured, Quinn Ewers has been injured every year of his college career.
Yeah.
And he had one of the best offensive lines in football. I mean, he had Kelvin Banks protect it.
Yeah.
It's just, some guys are prone to injury. With Taylor being injured last year, hoping it doesn't happen this year, but now you just want to know what your backup, and hopefully the reps that they weren't able to do when Madden was doing them, that they don't lose some stuff in spite of that.
That's what makes it so tough on coaches, from the standpoint that you go through spring, and I get it. I get all the portal stuff, but the spring portal window, and then specifically a situation like this, you bring in a guy with the intent of, future starter, going to be a backup and all of this stuff, and now it's just gone. So, I think they've gotten a pat on the back for all this for good reason because of all of that. And you hit the nail on the head from the standpoint that, Taylor got injured last year. You see guys get injured every single year, but it's just no secret with his play style. He's He's mobile. He's moving. He is taking a lot more hits than the average quarterback. So the fact of the matter is, if you place odds on it, you're more likely than not, like you're saying, to see a guy have to take meaningful snaps in SEC play, and you just hope that guys come in and are ready. And it'll be interesting to see in the fall as well where that kind of backup quarterback lies, because they were shy with pointing out, where Arkansas is. They said they felt confident in terms of the coaching staff, but regardless, it's going to be interesting to see how all that pans out. You just hope that in a situation where Talon gets injured, that you have the right choice to come in there in the backup. Before we go, let's talk a little bit of NFL draft. 2 Hogs get drafted. Isaac TeSlaa and Landon Jackson go off the board in 3-4 picks in a row there, 70 and 72, and then a whole slew of undrafted free agents. We'll start with the guys that got drafted. What were your thoughts on Isaac going to kind of the hometown team, Detroit, and then it seems like a good fit defensive line-wise, Landon headed up to Buffalo?
You think about the conversation Brad Holmes had after, where he put on the same jersey he's sporting since eighth grade or whatever it was. And then the interaction between Buffalo Bills general manager Brandon Beane and Landon Jackson. You heard both sides of that call the Bills put out. That was so cool. I mean, Landon is emotional. He's with his family in Texarkana. Isaac's the same way with his family, I guess, in Michigan. So a cool moment for both of those guys. And this is what kids work their entire lives for. Both of them had outstanding combines. Frankly, I'm surprised that Landon, I thought the idea was he was going to go up. He dropped. And Isaac shot up. Did anyone think that Isaac TeSlaa was going to be the first Razorback drafted? If you do, you're lying. So for both those guys, you're pumped. And then for the 8 guys that signed the free agent deals, I mean, if you're the Miami Dolphins, you got the steal of the draft in Andrew Armstrong. I mean, we've said this like probably 50 times here on Hog Roundup. The kid led like every category, every one in the Southeastern Conference, which is the toughest conference in college football. And he was in the first year of his offensive coordinator and his quarterback. And he still dominated. So Jacob, I gotta be honest, I shot him a text earlier and I was like, go prove him wrong. Very simple. I think he's going to. I'd love to see him catching balls from Tua at some point this season. That kid's a dog. And how about all the Jags, man?
I said Jacksonville Razorbacks, man. Like it's crazy.
And so Detroit's got Bates, Ragnow, Skipper, and now TeSlaa. Jacksonville's got Monteric Brown, Cam Little. Help me on this? Slaughter, Jackson.
He was a Kiwi, I believe.
Yeah, Kiwi Rose.
Yeah,
I believe that's right. So pretty wild, man. Jacksonville, Detroit, home of the Razorbacks, I guess.
Yeah. If you don't got an NFL team, I guess you pick Jacksonville and Detroit and roll with them. Detroit's a little bit better off than Jacksonville. We'll just leave it there. You brought up Andrew, and I know everybody, we've hit it time and time again, but I think I said this exact same thing when we talked before the draft last week. But when he came in here and talked with Courtney, the thing that he said, the statement that stood out above all else was, I've been underrated my whole life. I've been an underdog my whole life. I've been overlooked from the moment that I started playing football. And it's a little bit inexplicable. Like, you understand what GMs, what scouting departments are looking for in terms of athletic traits and all the above. It's what made Isaac shoot up the board as really a number 3, number 4 option at Arkansas. But at the same time, at a certain point, you got to look at what somebody did on the field. And I know we've said this time and time again, but it is just, what more could he have proven? And again, this is not a taking shots at Talon sort of situation. Talon was fine, but he wasn't an upper echelon quarterback in the SEC. So Andrew drew every tough assignment every single week, all of the focus of defenses, and all he did was go out and lead the SEC in every single major category. He missed the first game against UAPB as well. It's just hard for me to believe that that guy, a guy that is that motivated, a guy that has his head on straight, wasn't worth a 5th, 6th, or 7th round pick. It just seems ridiculous to me.
Yeah, and the aspect in 2 years, I don't think I heard one bad thing about him off the field either.
No.
Which is more than you can say for some of the guys that were selected in that draft. GMs and scouts and everyone has their opinions, but every once in a while you just need to turn on the television, turn it on ESPN and watch the kid go up against the best conference in college football week in, week out. So that was my evaluation of Andrew Armstrong. It's pretty simple-minded. I'm a simpleton, as you know, but whatever.
I like your evaluation better than a lot of GMs. Like last thing I'll say also, like don't give me that he only had 1 touchdown last year. Like that's what we're gonna nitpick. We're not gonna look at the other stats, but we're gonna grab that. Like I
And
can't
how many times did he get targeted in the red zone?
It's just,
Like Petrino, I know he gets a lot of love from Razorback fans and deservedly so for what he was able to do in the 2009, 2010, 2011. But I never understood. I was just like, if he had just throw him the ball, just I don't know. But again, I fully acknowledge that there are elements of football that I don't understand. I guess that's one of them.
I guess, but if I'm betting, I'm thinking that Andrew's going to make it, and I think that the Dolphins got themselves a heck of a steal in the undrafted free agent market. Yeah. It'll be fun to follow Andrew. It'll be fun to follow Isaac Land and all the Razorbacks. See where they make it. Pay attention to Jacksonville and Detroit. That's where your focus needs to be. But that's going to do it for this week's Hog Roundup. That is Tye Richardson. I am Jacob Morris, and we will talk to you next week.